My name is Kelvin Davis and welcome to my channel. Wanted to take some time out just to talk with you concerning state of housing in Black America. I actually had the honor of attending a NARAB event on this past Saturday, and NARAB, of course, is the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. It's the more or less African American group that was started way back 1947, back before we were, back before real estate agents. I'm not a real estate agent, but back before, say, blacks or African Americans were able to join the National Association of Realtors. They started their own group, 1947 NARAB. But in either event, it's a 100 city tour that NARAB is doing. And on this past weekend, we had some dynamic speakers to come. And one of the things that was mentioned, and I thought it was worth talking to you all about, was the airship property. And that's basically a piece of property that was left by one of your elders, whether it's a grandparent or parent, left by one of your family members. And they didn't leave it to a particular person, but more or less left it to everybody. And generally the way they do it, they don't leave a will at all. They don't have a will, no sort of instructions on how the property is to be disposed, upon their death. So of course the law takes over by default, and that's how you get into airship property. But one thing I wanted to mention as concerning wills, whether to have one or not, or whether you have one or not, and the difference between a will, having one or not, and a trust. A will, of course, when you pass away, a will basically outlines how you want your estate, property, whether it's real or personal, to be distributed amongst your family members, your heirs. If you don't have a will, then the law, state law, steps in, and according to the state statute, whatever state you may be in, I'm in Alabama, the law, the law has provisions on how property is to be distributed. Some to your wife if she's still alive, another part to your children if they're alive, and if not, then then you get into parents and potentially siblings and other heirs. If you don't have a will, the law says how it'll go. If you do have a will, you're able to say in your will. Now, I mentioned trust because a lot of the times we don't enter trust into the conversation. We push mom and dad to get wills, or we, are looking to have wills made. But that's primarily because that's all that we were taught. That's all we know about wills. But there's actually a thing called a trust. Now, there are revocable trusts, there are irrevocable trusts. Revocable basically says that you can change the trust. Irrevocable, you can't change it. And basically with a trust, you're looking to put property, take property out of your name and put it into the trust. So where you own the property initially, once you set it in the trust, you no longer own the property. The trust owns the property. And the difference between a trust and a will is that when you pass away, the property is in your name, and because it's in your name, then the will says how it's to be distributed, or the state says how it's to be distributed. Now, if it's not in your name, you have it in an LLC or some other entity, then that's different. And of course your life insurance is a contract, so it'll be paid out to the beneficiary that you name, and it's nothing that deals with the court, state statutes, anything of that nature. Well, as concerning wills versus trust, and hopefully I'm not, getting you all confused, but I want to come back to the fact that we're comparing wills and trusts. With the will, you have to go before the court. It has to be probated. If there's real estate in the estate, the only way that real estate can be transferred with some guarantee of good title is for the court to basically make the transfer, have the will drawn up, or signed off by the judge, the probate judge, and have that property transferred over into whoever it's supposed to be transferred over to. You have to go to probate. You have to pay court costs. You have to pay lawyer fees. And the information in your will, because it's a court case, it's a court matter, is public information. So it basically opens up your estate for, public scrutiny. And, most people don't care. But if there's somebody who does care, because it's gone through probate in a court of law, that information is public and they're able to see what's going on. With the trust, it's not like that at all. With a trust, the property transfers from you into the trust. It allows you to maintain anonymity as concerning your property, as concerning the way you distribute your property. And with the trust, you're able to make certain provisions to where initially you may be, and I'm not going to go very deep into it as concerning trust. I just kind of wanted to give you a general understanding as the difference between having a will and having a trust. Some of the pros and cons, the benefits. But with a trust, you maintain that anonymity. You don't have to go through probate, which means you don't have the court costs, you don't have the lawyer fees, you don't have your information on public display. But also with the trust, you're able to decide how you want your property distributed or not. You can actually make a provision that the property is to be held in trust in perpetuity, for 300 years if you wanted to. And that way you could actually create a legacy to where your trust pays out to the beneficiaries for a very long time, like I say, 100 years if you wanted to. Now, when it comes to real property, there's some things that you need to understand, and the person who sets up your trust will kind of explain to you what you can and cannot do according to your state law. But in either event, as concerning money, and we'll just talk about money, not necessarily real estate, but money you're able to put into a trust and decide that, hey, I want this money to always be in the trust and paying out dividends or profit to my beneficiaries. So you could designate that money is invested in some sort of a stock or annuity or some sort of a money generating enterprise, apartment complex, or however you want to do it. Well, when the trust receives profit from that investment, then that profit is something that you can designate to be paid out to your heirs, your kids, for generations to come. And that's something that you can do to start building generational wealth in your life for future generations. So I just wanted to come on and kind of give information concerning trust versus wills. And the reason I wanted to talk about it, during the NARAB event, they were talking about heir property and how, people will have tracts of land, whether it's 1 acre or 100 acres. And if it's your desire to keep that land in your family, then the better thing to do is to not die without designating how you want the property to be dealt with after your death. That's when you get into that heir property stuff, which is not a good idea in my opinion. And you may be thinking, well, I want everybody to have it. I don't want just one child to be named and everybody else left out, so I'm not going to name anybody, or I'm going to name everybody. Well, the problem that you run into is that when your 3 or 5 children, have 3 to 5 children, and their 3 to 5 children have 3 to 5 children, now all of a sudden that property that was in the name of 5 people blossoms to where now it's in the name of 50 people. And where you were looking to keep that property in the family, something that they could all enjoy and have, well, now you have family up in New York and family over in California and family down in Florida and family over in Texas, and the land is here in Alabama. Well, the people in New York and Florida and California may not care as much as the folks who are still here in Alabama. They may or may not. The folks in Alabama may not even care. So now that's where you get, developers or, real estate investors coming in, finding that one or two disinterested heir and offering them a little bit of money. Now they have an interest in that property, and they're able to, and I'm, giving you worst case scenario here, they're able to go before a judge and say, listen, I own so much of this property, with the other 50 people, I own a percentage, and I want to get my money out. There's no way that you can just give me a piece of that land, because all of that land, even though it's all one big, tract of land, there's no section of it that is any, how do I want to say, that we can evenly say this tract is the same as that tract. They're all individual pieces of land, So what we need to do is sell it. We can easily divide money. $1 is the same as 4 quarters, is the same as 10 dimes. That's all the same. So we can easily divide money. And courts will potentially order that the property be sold, the money distributed, and everybody get their, share in that property sold. Whereas you were looking to have it in your family forever. So the point I want to make is, when you get into creating heir property, you begin, or you put yourself or your family in the position of having these type of issues to deal with on down the line. They're just looking at it as free money. Let me sell my interest to a tract of land that I'm not going to go back to or live on or know anything about. I probably never even visited it. But if you're offering me $5,000-$10,000 for my share, my 1/50th share, here you go, Mr. Developer. And those are the type of issues that we get into. So just as a word of encouragement, we need to begin to understand more so trusts and not just wills. A lot of us don't even have wills. But I'm saying we need to also understand the benefit of having a trust and what it can do to preserve land and generational wealth in our families, in our community. So I want to leave you with that, and I definitely appreciate you. Listen, click the bell, subscribe to my channel so you'll get more content along these lines. We need to work towards home ownership. I always say we were brought to this country to do hard labor. We did that hard labor. When we were freed from the hard labor, we didn't get therapy. We didn't have opportunities necessarily. And we've built ourselves up to where we are now. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it shouldn't make any sense to you, that we helped build this country, and we did. It's a great country. We built this great country. It doesn't make sense that we shouldn't own a piece of it. We have the opportunity to own a piece of it. We have the freedom to own a piece of it. It doesn't make sense that we don't own a piece of this great country that we helped to build. So be encouraged and strive to own a piece of this great country. Strive for home ownership.